I've had a few different consoles in my life, and I've always noticed that they have different designs, and it's really cool to me. I promise they're not all rectangles. Now, starting with the Magnavox Odyssey, I actually really like this design. I think the white and the brown look very nice together, and it also just looks like this console came out in the time that it did, but not in a way that screams, I live in both the Vietnam and Cold War. The controller design was god-awful, though. Now, in my opinion, the Atari 2600 doesn't look bad, but the design is a little dated. Now, there's the one with the brown lip, so to speak, which I do think works, but then there was the all-black Darth Vader model, which had this all-black finish, and the ridges look a little weird to me, but it's whatever. This console is interesting, though, because the curve up is reminiscent of the shape of an actual arcade cabinet, but this console did have a base to, elevate the main body, which I do really like. And the controller that this console spawned was iconic and paved the way for what could work, unlike the Intellivision. I don't like the design of the Intellivision. It looks like an answering machine. It looks like I would use the controllers to put in my employee pin to send a fax. It's so boring and beige. The NES is an iconic design, don't get me wrong, and it started to standardize things more. Instead of being very thin and stretched out, it was very short and stubby. The two-tone white and gray with the ascending black line is instantly recognizable, as well as the red text, although I do believe that this design could look better. The console just kind of looks bland to me at times. But this console's controller standardized the way that the controllers were manufactured from here on out. The classic D-pad and two simple buttons. And then Sega made it ugly. Now, the actual design for the Sega Master System is actually really interesting to me. There's this pyramid almost shape to the top, and it raises the cartridge slot. I also do like all the black with the red accents. I don't know why it has instructions on it, though. Atari's back with 4 different numbers. Ditching the wooden classic design, this console is also rounded and oblong to the front and the back edges. Plus, I do actually really like the rainbow across the silver with the logo. It looks almost futuristic for being from 1986. Now, in some versions, the line is very slim, which makes it look even more modern. And the controller... Oh, God, can I even show that? Oh, never mind, they figured it out. The Sega Genesis looks like something a DJ would use. Jokes aside, I do like the design of this. I like that the cartridge slot and the logo are on the circle on the top to grab your attention, and then the rest of it is a fairly tame rectangle, aside from whoever filleted the side of it. Also, the controller is silly. The Super Nintendo is another dosing that certain elements are just immediately recognizable, like the purple buttons that stand out amongst the gray, and I do find it super interesting that unlike the NES and the Famicom, the SNES and Super Famicom don't have such a jarring difference. But here in the West, we got a much more rigid design with sharp edges and lines. Definitely looks more modern than the NES, but a very outdated look by today's standards, because, duh. The purple does look very nice on the controller, though. Almost bankrupt Atari is back, and instead of using the last 4 digits of your phone number, they decided to call this next console the Jaguar, so let's see what they got cooking. And it looks like a spaceship. It looks like if they took the Sega Genesis and then popped the circle out and made it aerodynamic for some reason. Now, I do think Atari did need a bold design to try to stay in the game, but this did not work for them. Now, they had a little bit of confusion with the last console, so let's see what the controller's like for this one. So that's why they're not around anymore. Going back to the Sega Genesis for a second, they did release the Sega CD in 32X to be attached to it, which makes it look like it's about to be mobilized as a weapon of war. It just looks clunky and bulky in my opinion. But then Sega released the Sega Saturn. Oh, great, a rectangle. Now, the all-black does look very bland, but the gray models do look a little bit better to me and hold more character. I think as Sega's sales declined, they wanted to play it safe, which is the exact opposite direction from the Genesis, and the controller on the gray ones looks pretty nice, and I like the colors, I guess, but it's all pretty bland to me. You may be looking at the first PlayStation and thinking to yourself, this is ugly as fuck, which you'd be correct, but I think the reason why is because this being Sony's first console, I think they kind of wanted to play it safe and let the hardware and games speak for themselves. It does lead to a pretty boring design, though. I guess I do kind of like the circles on the rectangle, but to me the entire design is just very boring, which it doesn't help the fact that it's gray, and the random ridges on the side confuse me. The N64 designs also isn't anything crazy. It does have these weird little nubs at the front, but other than that, it's pretty much just a black square. It did come in a lot of really cool colors though, and I do kind of miss the like translucent plastic. I guess you have to have something good going for you when your controller looks like that. The Dreamcast, being Sega's last console, has one of the more boring designs from Sega in my opinion. I do think the all-white and smaller design looks nice, but the controller with the little slot for the screen is clearly the best part of this. I also do like the spiral. It's simple and cute, and I wish more consoles had their own logos rather than just the company's. With the PlayStation 2, the console reminds me a lot of the Darth Vader model of the Atari 2600. Now, this console is also interesting because it's designed to function and look nice either horizontally or vertically, with the PlayStation logo being able to flip around. Standing vertically, the ridges on the side kind of look like a book, which is kind of cool, I guess. I also like the huge-ass PlayStation 2 logo on the side in case you forgot what you're playing. This is a game console. That's a cube. I do like the color, but the buttons at the top piss me off that they're not symmetrical. Now, I think consoles look better as rectangles, but the GameCube is cute. Since it uses the shitty mini discs at the top tray, it can be small and equal to the other sides, and it makes a lot of sense for it to be a cube, but that's all I can really say about it. The handle is quite funny. It's like as if it's so hard to hold a cube, you just need something to grab onto. The controller was absolutely goated as well, though. This design just screams, hell yeah. Giant rectangle with a huge-ass X and a green circle in the middle with the name. The front of the console is a bit boring, but I mean, this is all it needed to be. Similar to the PlayStation 1, the games and hardware were going to be doing all the heavy lifting. I genuinely believe that this is Xbox's best design, but we'll talk about more of that later. The Xbox 360 is another console that you can stand up or lay down, but I think it looks a lot better standing up, as I think most consoles do. The chrome button on the black models look very nice, but overall, this console's a little boring to me. It had a bunch of revisions, which the one that I had made it look like an Xbox One for some reason. I feel like the PlayStation 2 definitely started a trend with vertical consoles because we have another one, especially with the words on the console being readable when vertical and the stand that it came with. Now, as this console isn't very powerful, it makes sense that it's quite tiny. The white and black versions both look good, but I prefer the white, which looks very nice and modern. The blue is ugly as fuck, though. The PlayStation 3 has 3 versions, funny enough, which are all the same sort of oblong and oval shape, and I think the glossy design of the first one is the best looking, but I'm torn on whether I like the second or the third version less. But the third version was the one that I had, and it always just felt super cheap, and I'm not a fan of the ridges. With the Wii U's main gimmick just being the gamepad, it makes sense that the design for the actual console itself isn't anything crazy. Keeping the Wii name and theming, it makes sense that they look so similar. This one is just more rounded on the edges and is laid on its flat side. I don't know what's worse, this console's design or Xbox's naming strategy. This console is just a rectangle. I guess they were going for sleek, but it's just so boring to look at. The white Xbox One S looks a little better, but if I had trypophobia, I'd be shitting my pants. The Xbox One X is also ever so slightly not even with the bottom and top portion, and it really bugs me. But other than that, it's just a rectangle. The PlayStation 4 is also sort of just a rectangle, but the two-tier design with the hard edges and lines does make it look a little bit more modern. It's interesting to me with the smaller portion being glossy and the rest being matte. The PlayStation 4 Slim looks a little more lame with a matte finish as well, but for the Pro they just decided to add another section, which weirds me out a little, and I think it was a poor design choice. Although it does remind me of the PlayStation 2, but other than that, there's not really much here. Now, I was considering not even putting the Switch on here because it's basically just a handheld, but for the handheld mode, it looks exactly how I would expect, a screen with buttons and joysticks. The dock's design is also very boring because it's just supposed to be the slot for the Switch to sit in. I feel like they could have done something cool with the Switch sitting more flush or a design on the top that's only completed when you have the Switch in the dock, but it makes sense that they did what they did for this console. And when it comes to the Switch 2, everything remains the same. Now, all the router jokes aside, I actually really like the design of the PlayStation 5. The mainly white color is a first for PlayStation, and it really makes it stand out among the previous generations, as black just doesn't do it the same. The fins at the top stick out, which create these little slits for ventilation, which I do think looks really cool. Although I do believe it is the worst looking vertical console when it's laying flat. And the Slimmer Edition has this random gash on the side, but I don't mind it really. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say here. Although I do believe that the non-disc version does look better. The PS5 Pro has gills, When you don't know how to make a console look stronger, just give it fucking ridges, I guess. And Xbox gave us this fat ass. I really am disappointed in this design, and I feel like Xbox just really missed the mark in their console designs. The Series S looks like if you made the Xbox One S into a shitty Bluetooth speaker, but at least there's color contrast. I really hope their next design is better. Huh.